Welcome to our show in a nutshell. I'm Bob Savakinus. Today our guest is Bernie McGurl from the Lackawanna River Corridor Association and many other organizations that are environmental and important in our community. Bernie is a fourth-generation native of Lackawanna County. He attended the University of Scranton, Keystone College, and Johnson College. He has served as the executive director of the Lackawanna River Corridor Association, the LRCA, since 1990, and he was one of the co-founders in 1987. Bernie is the author of the Lackawanna River Guidebook from 1994, the Lackawanna River Watershed Conservation Plan, and the Lower Lackawanna River Watershed Restoration Assessment Plan. He serves as a member of the Board of Directors for the Lackawanna Valley Conservancy, the Northeast Pennsylvania Rail Trail Council, NEPA, the Eastern Pennsylvania Coalition for Abandoned Mine Reclamation, and the United Neighborhood Center Community Intervention Center. Bernie's interests include local history, including Gravity Railroad. But I know Bernie mainly from the Lackawanna River and all that he's accomplished. Bernie, what got you interested in the environment?
Good question, Bob. I think I'll maybe go back to bassinet days. I was getting a bath, and I was probably 3 or 4 years old, and I wanted to know where the water went when we pulled the plug on the tub. And my mother told me it went down through some pipes and went into the Lackawanna River, and the Lackawanna River went into the Susquehanna River, and the Susquehanna River went into the Chesapeake Bay. So at 3 years old, I was a budding hydrologist and a river rat, and it's been fun ever since. But that's, I think, where it began. Both my parents were very attuned to the environment. My dad was an inveterate hiker, and so we hiked all over the Music Mountains. And my mom was she was a horse lady. She loved horseback riding, and she got me in some equestrian interests when I was a kid. But we were always about being outside and enjoying the environment.
One of my early findings was that the Lackawanna River at one time, of course, was polluted. And from what I've heard in the community for many, many years is that you were the person responsible for a good part of that cleanup and everything. Tell me what it was like to begin that process of cleaning up something and making it trophy trout worthy.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to think that I was maybe the second generation of people that was involved with cleaning up the river. There were a lot of really great folks in the earlier part of the mid-20th century that led the fight to get the river cleaned up and get sewer agencies established. Because when I was asking about pulling the plug on the tub and where'd the water go, it went right down a pipe and under the street and down the hill into the river. And you know, everything that we did was flush our toilets and wash our cars and, you know, wash our laundry. It all went into the river up until 1966. Scranton built a sewer treatment plant. So there were a lot of folks that were pushing for the local municipalities to develop modern wastewater treatment facilities. And up in the Mid-Valley, Dick Cawley was involved with getting the Lackawanna River Basin Sewer Authority organized and getting the upper part of the watershed cleaned up. And there were other folks down valley. Of course, some of it was in a response to the water quality initiatives of the state and federal government. One of the things that folks might not know is that Pennsylvania led the way with our Clean Streams Law of 1937. Was the first nationwide clean water initiative in the 1930s with the progressive movement. And that eventually led to the development of the wastewater plants in the Lackawanna Valley, but only after the coal mines went out of business. So, but getting back to it, the river started to get cleaned up with the abandonment of the coal companies and the cessation of coal mining and the development of municipal wastewater treatment plants in the 1970s. So by the 1980s, when we created the LRCA, it was a group of folks that came together basically around the development of the Steamtown National Historic Site. We had a federally designated National Historic Site in the Valley, and a lot of us some of us got involved in that, myself, because of my interest in the rail industry. and I had worked on the railroad when I was younger with Erie Lackawanna, and later with Norfolk and Western. And so I was interested in rail. That's what got me into the river in sort of a backdoor way. But a lot of us got organized and started talking about fixing up the river in 1987, and that's what led to the LRCA.
So the LRCA is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to cleaning up the river and just working with the environment.
Yeah.
I know RiverFest is a major activity that you do, major fundraiser, major community event. Tell us a little bit about RiverFest, its origins, and what it's like.
Yeah. Well, there again, RiverFest goes back to the early 1970s. By 1973, the final LRBSA plant came online up valley, and so the river was clean enough for water contact sports for the first time in 150 years. So there was a group of folks associated with the JCs, and Dick Dermody and Greg Herbster was a former director of recreation for City of Scranton, and a bunch of their friends decided they'd get a canoe race going, and they called it Canoe-A-Thon, and they launched it up in Archbald and came down to South Scranton to the old Southside complex off of Hickory and Broadway streets. So that was 1973. I was in the first paddle on that. And we had a lot of fun, and it was like, oh, hey, let's get drunk and paddle the Lackey, and there was you could see all the legacy of the mine industry. I mean, some of it's still here, but over the last 50 years, it's dissipated. But back in the 70s, the industry was just freshly abandoned, so there were all kinds of coal tipples, and some of the breakers were still intact. The old Oliphant Colliery, a lot of that was still up there. The Marvin Colliery over in North Scranton was still there. So you'd be paddling past these, and then the coal dumps and the garbage, the washing machines, the shopping carts, the kitchen sink, anything and everything, and then tons of garbage on the riverbanks. So that's what the river was back then, and it didn't smell as bad as it did 10, 15, 20 years earlier when there was still everything going into it. But those folks got that thing going, and everybody said, let's get out and paddle the river every year. So that became a continuous thing for a few years. And there was a predecessor group called the Northeast Pennsylvania Environmental Council, NEPAC. And it was really organized by local folks in response to the first Earth Day in 1970. So NEPAC took it over and ran the Canoe-A-Thon and was the sponsor for that for a number of years. But then gradually its work dissipated, and it ceased its operations right when we were creating the LRCA. So we took the event over in 1988, and we've been running it ever since. And we transformed it from just being a paddle event to being a multiple component event with an all-day festival really on the river. And our finish line site has changed and expanded over the years, but now we have a great site in Scranton. It's called Sweeney's Beach.
Tell us a little bit about Sweeney's Beach, because I know that's a proud accomplishment for the LRCA.
It is. It's something we're real proud of, and the community it's a sort of a secret treasure in Scranton. The community is just discovering it. It's a piece of city-owned property, and actually it's on the Pine Brook side of the river, on the east bank of the Lackawanna River, just south of Poplar Street. And if you know where the Scranton Farmers Market is, if you're on the flood control levee at the Scranton Farmers Market and you look over to the east side of the river, you're going to see Sweeney's Beach. But it's accessible on a gravel driveway off of Poplar Street, right near the Poplar Street Bridge. It was a derelict piece of property. The city had acquired it as part of some of the recreation development back in the 1970s. There's a community park up on the hill above there, the Chick Feldman baseball field and the Pine Brook Playground at the end of Sanderson Avenue in Green Place. But the city could never access that area because there was an active branch of the railroad that was located there. But over the years, the railroad was abandoned. Lackawanna College had acquired an adjoining property and acquired the use of the railroad corridor to put a gravel roadway to access their practice fields for their football and soccer team. So when they did that, we realized that we could finally physically and legally access the city property. So we obtained an easement agreement with Lackawanna College, and we approached the city and said, hey, you know, we've got this 5-acre parcel that nobody could ever do anything with. It's a dumping ground in a knotweed jungle, just covered with that invasive Japanese bamboo species. And so we cleaned it up. We got grants. We got a long-term lease with the city, and that's enabled us to turn what was a wasteland into parkland. And it's a wonderful spot because we call it Sweeney's Beach. There is a gravel beach, gravel and sandy gravel, and I think the folks in the neighborhood used to call it Sandy Beach. There's the neighborhood just down from there is called Sandy Bank. So, but the site it allows us to land and retrieve canoes and kayaks and easily walk right into the water, very shallow, and then it gets deeper on the west bank. But it's a great site to have a finish line and have a river celebration. And we have about 2 acres of lawn area up on top and parking for about 50 cars in a gravel parking lot.
So I know the RiverFest has been going on for quite a few years, and of course with our current health situation and everything, it doesn't look like it's going to happen this year, or is it, Bernie?
Well, we're trying.
Okay.
We did cancel the event that was originally planned for Mother's Day weekend. We've had it on Mother's Day weekend pretty much going back into the 1990s. But this year we had to cancel it. We were in the height of the outbreak here, the first outbreak here. And but now that you know, during the summer here, we progress into reopening some of the economy and some of the activities that folks have been used to doing their whole lives, and under the green conditions of the state health regulations, we can have an outdoor assembly of 250 people. So if those conditions remain, if we stay in condition green through September, we're looking at Saturday, September 26th to do a smaller, scaled-down version of RiverFest at Sweeney's Beach. We're not going to have the canoe race. We actually have a virtual canoe race going on.
Tell us a little bit about the virtual canoe race.
So we'll get back to RiverFest in a few minutes. But folks could, if you want to find out about our organization, we've got a great website. It's under reconstruction. It's newly designed, but we still have to add a lot of the components in the background. But we've got basic information about the LRCA and about our activities. And we also have a Facebook page, so you can get to be friends with us on Facebook or visit our webpage, which is www.lrca.org, or look for us on Facebook and friend us because we've got a lot of activities, and we have postings a couple times a week on Facebook about our virtual activities and some in-person activities that we do, because we're still getting together for river cleanups and stewardship work, where we'll get half a dozen folks together to help pick trash out of the river and cut the grass and maintain some of the properties that our Conservancy owns, because we're also, we own about 200 acres of land along the river in different spots, and we partner with the Heritage Authority on the maintenance and management of the trail system. So we have lots of needs for volunteers, and you can find out about it on our website and our Facebook page. But we have right now a late summer kayak paddle, a virtual paddle event. So while we're not getting everybody together to have a downriver whitewater race like we had in previous years with the Canoe-A-Thon, you can get out on your own time when the river's navigable. And it's important to know that this river is not always navigable, especially in the summer. The water levels with drought, we pretty much had a drought in July. So when the river's at 1.8 feet, it's no fun at all. You're going to be just stuck on the rocks. And but during storm events, like we just had this tropical storm Isaias or Isis, whatever it was, it brought the river up to about 4.5 to 5 feet on the gauge. So we have a link on our watershed page on our website. You can click on river conditions, and it'll take you to a page that'll have links to the USGS, U.S. Geological Service, has 3 river gauges on the Lackawanna River, one at Archbald, one at Leggett's Creek, and one at Old Forge. So we use the Archbald river gauge, the USGS gauge at Archbald, to calibrate when the river is navigable. So if we have a heavy summer thunderstorm and the river comes up and you're looking at it and say, I wonder how far it came up, check the Archibald gauge. And if the river is running between 2.6 and 3.2 feet on the Archibald gauge, it's fantastic for paddling. A lot of fun. It's not too fast if you're not an experienced paddler. If you're an experienced paddler, you can get out there when it's up towards 3 and 4 feet. I would not advise, unless you're a highly experienced paddler, going anywhere near the river when it's above 4 feet, because it could kill you. But between 2.6 and 3.2 feet, it's fantastic if you're a novice. And get out there with some friends. Record your time when you launch and the time you land. We have our finish line at Sweeney's Beach, and we have 2 courses that you can run. You can run from the Blakely Borough Recreation Area up in Blakely down to Sweeney's Beach in Scranton, or you can run from the David Maslar Park up in Archibald down to Sweeney's Beach in Scranton. Record your times and also record the river gauge reading and the river gauge discharge rate. And we're going to be creating a prorated formula that will take your time and the gauge reading at the time that you paddle, and will assign a ratio number to that. And then we're going to compare all the ratio numbers, and the winner will be the one with the best ratio number. So you don't have to be out there at the same time as the other competitors. You can get out on your own. It's always good to go with a party of 2 or 3 people. You can easily keep a social distance from one another when you're out on a kayak on the river, and you're going to have a lot of fun. But it's really important to check the gauge reading, and when that gauge is between 2.6 and 3.2, get out there and have a good time.
Good words of advice and good activities, so something that you could participate in and also maybe win a prize.
Yep, you could. Yep, we have prizes. We'll be giving ribbons out at, and the event runs from now. It started on August 4th, and it'll run till September 23rd, a few days before the target date for us to have our RiverFest on September 26th. So we're looking at September 26th, Saturday, September 26th, for an event that we can have about 200 to 250 people attend. We're going to have a little bit of music. We have a new pavilion at Sweeney's Beach. We've got electric service into Sweeney's Beach. So we're going to have a little bit of music. We're going to have 1 or 2 food vendors. We're not going to have a beer tent this year, but people are welcome to bring their own beverages, bring their own picnic lunch, but we will have some food vendors. And we're suggesting people bring a picnic blanket or bring some camp chairs and spread out. We're not going to have tents and tables like we usually do, because we don't want to get people close together under those circumstances. So there's 2.5 acres, and we think we can spread 200 people out over that 2.5 acres. And we're also going to be doing the duck race at 3 o'clock on the afternoon of September 26th.
And this duck race is famous. I know it is.
It's a lot of fun. It's called the Lackawanna River Duck-A-Thon, and we have 10 big, aggressive racing ducks. They're plastic, folks. They're just big plastic decoy ducks, but we sort of give them some persona. They've all been painted up by some kids in an art program that we were involved with a few years ago, and their teachers. So they're very colorful ducks. We have a duck launching gate that gets submerged in the river just about 100 yards upstream of a finish line, which will be right at Sweeney's Beach. So we'll have a line of skirmishers across the finish line to catch the ducks, and we'll have a couple of eagle-eyed judges looking at that finish line to determine which of these ducks crosses the finish line first. So the first, second, and third place ducks will qualify the ticket that you buy. So every raffle ticket that anybody can buy in the whole world is going to end in an integer 0 to 9. So we have ducks number 0 to 9. So say if duck number 5 comes across the finish line first, we will segregate all the tickets by the last integer in their number, and the winner will get picked out of box number 5. And there's a $500 first prize, cash prize for.
How are tickets available?
For the duck race. Duck tickets are available on our Facebook page and our website, and you can buy them electronically. We have a secure, digitally secure electronic system on our website, so you can plug your numbers in and buy your duck tickets, or you can buy them in person. Every LRCA board member will be selling. They have a bunch of them in their pocket. I didn't bring any with me today. I'm sorry, Bob. And we didn't get yours yet, but duck tickets are available. Go to our website and get your duck tickets.
So we have RiverFest to pay attention to, canoe race, a virtual canoe race, in addition to the duck tickets. But I also want to discuss something very important, and I think that the LRCA could be very proud of, and all of northeastern Pennsylvania can be. From what I know, there was voting throughout the state, and the Lackawanna River was chosen as. Tell us about this.
Yeah, we're Lackawanna River.
I don't want to steal your thunder. Tell us what it was.
Yeah, Lackawanna River has got a great honor across Pennsylvania. We have been designated as the River of the Year for 2020.
Congratulations!
And what a great year to be designated as River of the Year. The River of the Year designation it's a statewide contest that's sponsored annually by our Department of Conservation and Natural Resources and their nonprofit sector partner, the POWER, the Pennsylvania Organization of Watersheds and Rivers, and Pennsylvania Environmental Council. So all the watershed groups in Pennsylvania are members of POWER. And so we nominate our river, and then that gets submitted in the early part of the year to POWER, and then POWER will select 4 or 5 of the rivers every year that get nominated for consideration by the public at large. And then there's an online voting process. So it's up to each river to promote itself in its own constituency and maybe reach out and get folks in our case, we reached out to our friends up in the Tunkhannock watershed and over in the Delaware River watershed and out in the Poconos and out in the Endless Mountains and downstream in the anthracite region. We have a lot of other watershed groups throughout the anthracite region that we work with through Eastern Pennsylvania Coalition for Abandoned Mine Reclamation and the rail trail groups, the conservancies. And we managed to get over 8,500 votes this year. And actually, it's a record for the whole voting period of going back 10 or 20 years when they started doing the voting. So we're tops. We're number one. And we've got a nice poster that is available. And there are a limited number of these posters. So if you'd like one, we will have them available at RiverFest. Or you could request one by emailing LRCA at lrca.org. And
beautiful poster.
It's a great poster. It's got some pictures of activities along the river. It's got a picture of one of our first projects, the footbridge that runs between Condella Park and the Blakely Borough Recreation Area up in Oliphant and Blakely. And that was our first collaboration with those two boroughs and the Lackawanna Heritage Valley Authority back in 1992. And we built that bridge back then for about $150,000. Now that would probably cost about $400,000. But we could do things for a reasonable amount of money back in the 90s. And so we'd like to build a few more bridges across the river over the next few years. Our work is not done by any means, but we're celebrating having the designation of the River of the Year. And it goes through the rest of the year. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're going to try to have an in-person event for RiverFest. Because in other years, if we weren't River of the Year and we had a pandemic like this, I'd probably say, no, we're not going to do it. But I think there's a lot of interest in having an event where people could get out and get together and celebrate the river. So we are looking forward to seeing everybody that can make it. And we're encouraging people, if you only want to stop by for 5 or 10 minutes at RiverFest, we welcome you to just stop by and pick up a poster. We also have, now the posters are free, but we are selling some really wonderful commemorative River of the Year t-shirts. And these are $15 a piece, and they'll be available. Actually, they're available online. You can go online right now on our website or our Facebook page and order one of these t-shirts. You can stop by our office to pick one up, or you can throw in a couple other bucks for mailing, and we'll mail it out to you. but they're available in small, medium, large, extra large, and 2XL. And they've got a outline of the Lackawanna River watershed, a digital elevation model that shows the mountains and the river and the streams, and the LRCA logo, Lackawanna River Conservation Association. We used to be the Corridor Association, but about 5 years ago we changed the name to Conservation because we are all over this watershed.
So Bernie, there's a lot of activities going on. There's a lot of great merchandise available, celebrating, commemorating that Lackawanna is named as the River of the Year. I want to talk to Bernie McGurl, the man, for a few moments. What drives you to keep our environment so clean, our river so perfect as you could ask for? What drives you? What makes you want to do this?
I really don't know, Bob. I think I have an innate passion that probably came from my upbringing, from my mom and dad, and just the history of our family. We've been here for about 175 or 180 years. My great grandparents emigrated from Ireland, actually before the famine in 1840, and we were involved in coal mining and other businesses in the last century, and by the 20th century had worked our way out of the mines, and we're in a whole variety of businesses and professions. So I've got a family legacy that really cares about our community, that's been involved in our community for a long time, and my folks were involved in the civic organizations and the civic life of the community. So I picked that up from an early age.
A basic question for you, though, is what is your proudest accomplishment for the many, many years that you've been involved in keeping the Lackawanna River so clean and cleaning up northeastern Pennsylvania?
Yeah. Well, I think it'd be the creation of our affiliate back in 1995. Folks wanted to give us land along the river, and some of our members were a little cautious about that and said, well, geez, it might be contaminated. But we said, some of the other folks on the board, including myself, said, well, aren't we all about getting it clean? And if nobody else is going to clean it and it needs to be cleaned up, let's put our hands around it and take the bull by the horns and get it cleaned up and get it converted for something more useful. So we created the Lackawanna Valley Conservancy, which is a land trust. It's a charitable, not-for-profit, 501c3 organization. It's an affiliate of the Lackawanna River Conservation Association. We have a common board of directors now, and we own about 20 pieces of property totaling 200 acres between Pittston and Carbondale, and we conserve the land. We've acquired several portions of abandoned railroad that we've conveyed easements on those properties to the Lackawanna Heritage Valley Authority, and they've developed sections of the Heritage Trail on those properties. And then some of the properties we've acquired are adjacent to the Heritage Trail, where the Heritage Authority acquired a different section of the railroad, but there was an adjoining property that we found was available, so we acquired it to conserve it, to keep it in green space.
A major part of your mission is also land conservation.
Yes,
so
it is.
If someone was interested in donating land to be conserved, they probably could get on your website and contact you directly or get additional information.
We're very interested in speaking with folks that either have land that they'd like to develop a conservation plan for, or would like to convey land to us for permanent conservation. We either own land outright, or we have a conservation easement where the property owner continues to own the land but puts development restrictions on it so it can't be developed. And we can also work with developers to create a piece of land that somebody wants to develop part of, but maybe there's a stream corridor and floodplain that aren't suitable for development. Well, during the subdivision process, that could all be laid out, so that then becomes a conservation complement to a business park or a housing development or a multi-use business, housing, commercial type development.
So basically, Bernie, if anyone is interested in trying to help preserve our land, clean up the environment and everything. The Lackawanna River Conservation Association, the Lackawanna Valley Conservancy is the place to go and talk to, and you are the persons to talk to about all this. So Bernie, I want to thank you so much for being our guest today.
Yeah,
I want to congratulate you and the organization for the River of the Year designation. It's a great honor. Thank you also for all that you've done for our environment and keeping it clean and safe here in northeastern Pennsylvania. And I just want to thank our audience and ask you to tune in again. I'm Bob Savakinus, in a nutshell, with another guest next week. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Bob.